Like, my coaches make sure that they're staying on top of me with my grades and how I'm doing in my classes. If there's something that I'm struggling on, like, they recommend me going to tutoring. When I was in 8th grade was when I got my first offer to Point Loma, going into my my freshman year of high school. I also have to tell myself that, like, it's okay to not be okay all the time. And it's okay to speak up about it, because there are people that are struggling in a similar way or the same way that you are, but are too afraid to speak up about it. And say, don't let anybody tell you you can't do something.
Let me introduce you to our audience. Welcome to the podcast, Madi Milby, who is a defender currently playing for the Premier Women's in the WPSL, as well as the University of Montevallo in Alabama, where she's named to the 21 and 22 GSC Academic Honor Roll. Before Montevallo, she played for the CBU in the Western Athletic Conference, and also under 17 and under 19 champion in the National League with her old club Legends FC. She's currently, before representing FC Premier, she also played for her SoCal Union FC in the WPSL. Also want to mention Madi's experience store in the SPRTER app, where she has some awesome experiences to connect with her. Let's delve into this. How did you start out? Welcome to the podcast.
Hi.
So how did you start out playing soccer? When did you realize, hey, this is something I really like? And when did you realize this is something I'm actually really good at?
I started playing soccer when I was 4 years old. My parents threw me into rec, and as I was growing up, I tried just about every sport, and I never really stuck with it the way that I stuck with soccer. So after my parents realized, I think around like age 8, that I wanted to just play soccer, that was like the one sport that I stuck with. And as I grew up, my parents gave me, or paid for me to do, like, one-on-one trainings. And I think when I turned 10 was when I played on my first club team. And I just played for like a little local team by my house, which isn't even here anymore. But and I think when I was going into middle school is when I realized that I wanted to play soccer in college. And so that's when my parents took it even more seriously. And I was doing just about every private training there was to offer. I was playing on a more advanced club team, doing a lot of traveling. I went to a lot of college ID camps. And yeah, I just really fell in love with soccer because it's a big stress reliever for me. It's a great way for me to exercise, and I've loved all of the relationships that I've made throughout the entire process.
That's an awesome overview. Thank you so much for sharing. Now, you mentioned that your parents really supported you in those career steps and supporting you through private training. Seems like it's paying off, as in you're playing college, you're playing in the WPSL. What made you decide, you know what, college soccer is for me? And how did you decide on the university that you're currently playing? As in, what was that recruitment like, and what made you go, yes, that's it for me?
When I was in 8th grade was when I got my first offer to Point Loma, going into my my freshman year of high school. The coach had talked to me and told me that he really liked the way that I played. I was in the middle of like transferring from playing a forward position to a defender position, which is what I play now, because my coach in the past thought that I would get recruited better as an outside back, which he wasn't wrong. But I think just like going to camps, and then I wanted more of like, I didn't really want to leave California to begin with. I didn't want to go super far away. So like when I had like littler schools from back east and stuff reaching out to me, I didn't really pay much attention, just because I was more like set on going to California. And I didn't want to be far away from my family. I didn't want to be far away from my friends. And I wanted something that was more of like a modern feel, like the difference between when I went and visited University of Nevada, Reno. It was super like brick, and it was green, and it had like that old timey feel, like Duke and stuff like that. And I loved the campus, but I just couldn't see myself going there. And so when I went on my visit to Cal Baptist University, it was like super modern. It was super flat. Like it was close to my dad's work, and I could just picture myself going there. And I think that was what really made my decision on going to Cal Baptist first. I mean, obviously now I'm in Alabama. That's far from home. But I did have 2 years in California first, and my dad said that, it was good for me because I had 2 years to like grow and mature and get that responsibility. So then when I did go to Alabama, I was like more prepared. I was better at being like living on my own and taking care of myself and all of that stuff. Recruiting wise, my mom was always at every game with a video camera, recording just about every move that I made. And we made it into a highlight video, and I have like a letter template that I typed up that I would send to coaches with my highlight. And but back then you could talk to college coaches going into like your sophomore year of high school. Now I think it's like your junior year. So I was really young back then, so I was able to reach out to coaches, and if they answered, we could talk. But if they couldn't reach out to me until I was a sophomore. So that's kind of like how it worked for Cal Baptist. I reached out to them, and then it kind of like went from there.
And you mentioned that having that step in between, as in, hey, this is close to home. It kind of feels safe, as in it feels I can still have that connection to the family. And that's something that we sometimes see with athletes. And I'm like, okay, let me take this step and then go to the next step. And as you mentioned, hey, you're now in Alabama, and now that's much further away. You've taken that next step. What made you decide to change the program, to transfer in between?
I ended up leaving Cal Baptist just because soccer, obviously. But when I was looking for schools, I had to look for a program where they had my major. So I'm a speech language pathology major, which isn't really offered at every single school. And so when I was looking at schools, I wasn't necessarily worried about like D1, D2, like that didn't matter to me anymore. I was more worried about my education. And obviously I wanted to play for a good program, but like I said, education. And I could have gone to like a UC or a state school for free tuition because of my dad's Cal Vet bill. But I had a lot of friends who had gone to schools out of state. So I was just like scrolling through my Instagram, seeing where people were going. And this one girl that I used to play soccer with played at the University of Montevallo. So I was like, oh, I'm just going to see if they have my program. So I did, and they actually have one of the best speech programs in the state of Alabama. So I just emailed the assistant at the time and the head coach and was just like, hey, my name's Madi. I'm a D1 transfer. This is my information. And like that night, I got an email back from Jake, and he was like, let's set up a phone call. Very interested. If you have film, send it over. I did. And he had me on a flight out there the next week. And
okay, so they were interested. You knew that.
And like what really stuck out to me the most was like, I love both of my coaches. They're very personable. They care about you as more than just a player. And that was a big thing for me as well. Like I wanted to be treated as a human being and not just a soccer player on your team. And both my coaches have made an amazing effort to show that. And my dad got along really well with the coach. My dad's super protective. He's in law enforcement. So he's always like, is this a safe area? Whatever. So like the school has their own police department, all that stuff. Like he was super excited about it. So I kind of like, obviously my school, it's in a really small part of Alabama. It's in the exact middle of Alabama. It has a population of like 6,000 people, including the college. So it's in a small town, but it's like, I fell in love with not only like the education part, but soccer. And that was like what I really, really drew me to it, was the coaches, And I didn't get to meet any of the girls till I got there, but like they're all 25 of my best friends, so it's great.
That's very cool. Now, you mentioned one thing I want to follow up on is that the coaches made you feel like a human. They care, they deeply care about you.
Hmm.
What are some of the ways that they show that? As in, how can you, if for someone who's looking for that, hey, I really value that relationship with a coach.
Uh-huh.
I want exactly what you're having. Like, what are
Hmm.
some of the ways that you can say, yes, this coach actually cares about me and as a human being, rather than just
Hmm.
be, yep, you're number 17. Go and get some goals.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's more than just like asking me how my day was. Like my coaches make sure that they're staying on top of me with my grades and how I'm doing in my classes. If there's something that I'm struggling on, like they recommend me going to tutoring, or, if I am not doing very good that day, I feel comfortable to talk to them about it. So they know that like, oh, I'm not just having a bad practice because I'm not performing well. It's because, something outside of soccer is going on. Um, or like they ask what about things that are going on in my life, or they ask how my parents are doing, or just like little things like that. And I think that it's more than just like, okay, I need you to perform to this level because I want to win. And I really appreciate everything that my coaches have done for me up to this point. They care about my mental health, they care about me as a person, they care about my family, my relationships, like all of that stuff.
And that's really nice to see. But all of the athletes out there, take note that those are the things that a good coach should be doing, and when you want a player who cares about those relationships.
Hmm.
You mentioned a few things I want to delve deeper into as well. One aspect is the mental health aspect. You are very engaged in supporting projects around mental health.
Hmm.
It's a cause that you, as we know, care deeply about. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Um, So recently, I actually just did a fundraiser with Morgan's Message, which is about a Duke lacrosse player who passed away actually 4 years ago today. Um, she took her life because of her mental health, and I've struggled with mental health personally in the past, and it is a serious thing, and it's like it's not something that you mess around with. And when I say that my coaches treat me as a person and not just a player, that is a big factor into how my mental health plays out. Because if I went to a school 2,000 miles away from my house and my coaches only cared about my performance and not who I am as a player, and I wasn't like forming connections with my teammates as well as I thought I would, then obviously like my mental health is going to go down. And it is a serious thing to talk about, and I feel like it's not talked about enough for race, because there are a lot of schools that don't have like sports psychologists or free counselors and stuff like that. And luckily at my have that like a couple of those things, which does help. And a lot of athletes struggle to believe that like therapy is okay and talking to people about what's going on is okay. And it's just something that mental health needs to be destigmatized in athletics for sure.
Absolutely, and we see athletes as that the traditional, you run fast, you exercise, you do everything for your body, you treat your body as a temple, yet the
Mm-hmm.
mind is oftentimes ignored in a lot of the training, and we've seen a mind shift more and more towards that, but a lot more needs to be done in order to shift that mind. And now a lot of athletes have come out and supported and spoken up about it. Michael Phelps has been extremely vocal about it.
Mm-hmm.
Simone Biles during the Olympics has been extremely in the spotlight and taken I guess, the Olympic platform to advocate
Yeah.
for mental health. What does that mean to you as an athlete? It's like, hey, some of the athletes at the highest level of the sports go through the same thing that I'm going through sometimes, or similar things. Obviously, not exactly the same. Every mental mind is different, but they also struggle
Yeah.
sometimes. What does that mean to
I
you?
mean, it's kind of interesting because, you know, when those professional athletes are going through that, sometimes like I would be like, oh, like I can't think like that. I'm not playing at that level yet, like stuff like that. But then I also have to tell myself that like it's okay to not be okay all the time. And it's okay to speak up about it, because there are people that are struggling in a similar way or the same way that you are, but are too afraid to speak up about it. So, by me doing a fundraiser about it, or, becoming an ambassador for my school about it, I feel like it's like a stepping stone that I'm placing for student athletes in the future or now, to be able to feel comfortable to talk about their mental health.
Absolutely, I fully agree that when we talk about the role model, yes, we oftentimes see those 0.001 percenters
Mm-hmm.
where like, hey, there's a lot of people who are similar to me
Yeah.
who don't make the millions, who may not be at the Olympic stage, but we're all struggling, we're all
Mm-hmm.
going through something. And as you said, being the person who steps up and you know gets involved with fundraisers, gets involved with being a spokesperson, to me that means a lot, as in you are being essentially a role model for others in your shoes to follow along.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's really important that we see more and more in that conversation around mental health.
Yeah.
um, so thanks for doing all of that awesome work
Yeah, of
there.
course.
um, Speaking of role models, though, were there any role models that you've been following that you're like, hey, this is someone I can learn from. This is someone where I can pick up some, little nuggets here and there, whether it's about playing soccer or whether it's about how to vocalize your values and beliefs.
I think growing up, I before I got into middle school, I was always one of the younger kids. So I always looked up to the kids that were older than me. Like when I played for Arsenal, my coach had a sister team who was like 3 years older than us. And, I always wanted to be like the older girls. I wanted to perform like the older girls. Um, and I think that just growing up, like I've always looked up to people that were older than me and who had achieved so much. And I was like, I know that I can do that. I want to do that. And when I get to that age, like I want to be able to do that. And like growing up, obviously, I've always looked up to my parents. They're both hardworking. They've both sacrificed so much for me and have helped really shape me into the person that I am today.
Okay, no, that makes a lot of sense. And it's nice to see people recognize the work that their parents have put in. And as you said, your mom was on the sideline with the
Yeah.
camera. So those hours, I'm sure it was very rewarding for her to see you play and see you get better and just enjoying yourself as well. But
Mhm.
I think oftentimes we forget that those our parents have been doing a lot of work to get us where we are
Yeah.
essentially. Um, Mental health, just looping this back briefly, is how do you overcome something where like maybe I don't feel as good or maybe I'm struggling right now? Are there any techniques that you're following? Is there like a breathing technique, a yoga technique, anything that for me it's like I refer back to breathing when I'm too stressed or when something overwhelms me.
Mhm.
Like, all right, close your eyes, take some breath. Is there something that you can recommend?
I think there's a couple of things. One of the biggest things is I like to surround myself around people that are supportive of me and that care about me and just be open about what I'm going through, because I know that they'll always support me and give me good advice or whatever that I need. Um, Another thing is like grounding myself. Like I know if I'm getting anxious or overthinking a lot, I just like plant my feet in the ground and I tell myself that like, you're okay, everything's okay, like you've got this pretty much. Or another thing is when I'm having like irrational thoughts, I like to talk about it to myself and kind of just come up with things about like, why am I feeling this way? Is what I'm feeling like rational? Is it normal? and kind of just talk myself out of it that way.
That that's pretty awesome. When it seems like you have a strategic way here, as in I surround myself with people. I don't let these negative surroundings or environment impact me. Or like, are you actively selecting who is impacting you, and then you have some coping
Yeah.
mechanisms for if something happens, and that's pretty important to have these type of different coping mechanisms. I
Hmm.
think we're definitely going to share those tidbits out. I think that's really important. Now, women's soccer has been growing in general,
Hmm.
women's soccer particularly. Where do you see some changes over the last years in the US or worldwide, or just for you yourself? Where do you see the sport coming along, as well as where do you see the future of the sport?
I mean, I think it's very fast growing. It's really big. I mean, I personally watch it more than men's soccer, but that's just being biased. Um, Obviously, the whole equal pay thing in women's sports in general, not just women's soccer, but I think that that's very important. When I was a freshman in college, I actually, before the whole equal pay thing came out, I wrote a argumentative essay on equal pay for the U.S. women's national team, and I talked about like how much better their performances, what were their record, and just like a whole bunch of different things. Which like now the talent coming up is like there's kids that are 16, 17, 18 years old playing in the professional leagues, and it's like they're also paving the way for the kids that are younger than them. And I feel like years from now, say like 10 years from now, it's going to be an even bigger sport than what it was already, because these little girls are like looking up to these people. Like me too, when I was younger, like I was looking up to Mia Hamm and Alex Morgan, and and it pushes these girls to want to try playing this sport. And um, I think that they do amazing when they play in the World Cup, when they play over out of the country and stuff like that. So I think that years from now, like it's going to be an even bigger sport than it already is.
I would fully agree. I think, and you just mentioned the World Cup. It's upcoming,
Hmm.
starting I think 2 weeks from now, a week and a
Yeah.
half from now, something like that. Any predictions?
I don't know. Now I'm biased because obviously USA, but a girl that was on my WPSL team this summer is actually on the Canada national team. So I'm like rooting for both sides right now.
Okay. I mean, I think the US team obviously has been they've had a quite a bit of success. So hopefully they can continue that. But
Hmm.
it's nice when you have these personal relationships with some of the players. And you're like, actually, I want you to also be successful.
Yeah.
Um, difficult to have both at the same time, but
Yeah.
it's nice to see those personal relationships play out in professional sport in
Hmm.
a way. Now, women's sport growing, mental health, you're being advocating for it. You engaged, but you also said earlier, hey, I want to I prioritize my studies. I selected my university for the studies. What are some of your big goals for the rest of 2023?
Well, I'm taking my COVID year this year um, at Montevallo. So instead of graduating last spring, I added on a second major. So I'm going to be graduating this upcoming spring with two bachelors and a minor. So that was like that'll be a really big goal for me to finish out there. I'm really excited for this next season. It's going to be really good. We have a lot of good girls coming in. Obviously, two amazing coaches that are going to do the best that they can to help lead us to hopefully another GSC championship, which would be awesome to go out with a ring. That's the ultimate goal right there. But I, I hope to eventually get into possibly a grad school because I want to get my master's degree, continue hopefully continue to play soccer because I told myself after last year that I wasn't ready to give it up, and luckily I have this next year of eligibility. But after this year, I'm done with college soccer, so we'll see where it takes me after school is over.
Okay, 2 degrees or 2 bachelors. That's pretty strong. What is the other one? You said
I'm getting
speech pathology is one of
yeah,
them?
so I'm graduating with a bachelor's of science in communication sciences and disorders, and then my second is in sociology with a concentration in criminology, and then my minor is in deaf studies.
Very interesting.
Mhm.
I'm very, yeah, I could see that good. I could see that leading me some rabbit holes down the road. So very interesting. And obviously, 2 bachelors. The COVID year is certainly helpful with that. Helped a lot of athletes stay in school longer,
Mhm.
yeah, get a more advanced education. So
Yeah.
pretty awesome to see that play out for you as well and be beneficial to your career.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned, hey, I have another year. You currently playing? Well, how do you keep fit during the summer, during the off season?
I'm playing in on my WPSL team right now for FC Premier. The season actually just ended, I think, last week, but that was, and I'm starting to get into the gym a little bit more just because I'm not practicing as much during the week, and I was playing about 2 games on the weekends. Um,
Hmm.
so I got soccer fit, and now I'm just trying to maintain that until I get back to school.
Okay, it's good to be soccer fit. And
Hmm.
and how does the WPSL, how's it compared to university soccer, to college soccer?
It's really interesting because, like, university, everybody's not on the same level, but like we're all in that Division 2 bracket. But
Hmm.
then when you come to WPSL, like we have girls from USC, Purdue, Long Beach, little Cal State LA, University of Montevallo, like all of these different teams and different ways that these girls play, and we all have to come together and learn how to play together, which I think is really awesome because this was my first season playing with them, and I loved my coaches, and I loved the girls that I played with. They were all so fun. They were so friendly and inviting, and honestly we all played really well together. I mean, obviously it takes a couple practices, it takes a couple games, but once we got into like a groove and the hang of it and like a solid consistent set of players showing up for every game, like we were amazing together.
That's cool to hear about that. Okay, well, everyone, as you said, different schools, different
Hmm.
probably different systems that everyone plays from on a regular basis, and then also just that communication on the field. As in, I played soccer in Germany and Australia a bit, where you're like, oh, I expected you to go long and you went left.
Yeah,
So what is
you kind of
going
have to
on
like
here?
adapt to how the people play. Like some
Yeah.
people don't want to chase after a ball every single time. Some people want it at feet, or some people are right-footed and not left-footed, or whatever. Like all those different things, you have to adapt to it.
And now that soccer fitness that you have right now, it's about a month and a half before the university starts up again,
Yeah, so actually
roughly.
it's about a little bit less than a month. Yesterday would have been a month.
Okay.
I go back August 10th.
Okay.
So, and I've been playing soccer for the last 2.5 almost months. So I feel very confident that I'm prepared to go back to school.
Okay. Any thoughts of potentially overtraining, or are you regulating that somehow?
Um, so we were only practicing like 2 times a week, but it's in Long Beach, and I live more in like Riverside County, so it was kind of a drive. So if we had a game like Friday, Sunday, I wouldn't go to practice Monday
Hmm.
because I know my legs would be dead tired, and I'd do a recovery session down here on my own,
Okay.
and then I would go to practice Wednesday, and then we'd have a game again Friday, Sunday. So I was very, in the past I haven't been good about it, but like now that I've gotten older and I feel older, I'm starting to like recognize where my how my body is feeling. And if my body's screaming at me like stop, stop, like that hurts, or like, my muscles are really tight, then I take advantage of not being able to go to practice 2 days a week and one instead of just two, and focusing on stretching or rolling out or compression therapy or anything like that.
Okay, so you're getting older.
Yeah.
It's good to listen to your body,
Yeah.
as there's definitely generally there's a reason why your body doesn't want you to do something. So yeah, that's beneficial to listen to. I really appreciate you joining us today, and I won't let you go without asking you the question that I ask every one of our attendees, our guests, at the end of the session. What's your number one recommendation for the next generation of athletes?
Wow. Honestly, probably would say don't let anybody tell you you can't do something, because there's going to be people out there that are going to be negative, they're going to hate on you, or they're going to be jealous and insecure about the way that they play or something like that. And, you know, girls can do stuff that guys can do too. I played football in high school, you know, like I've always tried to make sure that I've been the person that other people can look up to, that did things that people told me I couldn't. And I think that's my biggest thing when talking to the younger generation, is being like, don't let anybody tell you that you can't kick a soccer ball. Don't let anybody tell you that you can't play football, or don't let anybody tell you that you can't take all AP classes in high school, just like things like that. Because if you have people that are telling you that and you're listening to them, you're never going to reach your fullest potential.
That is very awesome advice. Yeah, I think we see a lot of particular athletes see a lot of the criticism. They see. I usually finish that interview after this question, but I really want to dig into this one
No, you're fine.
aspect, because you just mentioned some. Don't let people tell you. Don't listen to the naysayers, to the almost like the bullies. One particular, as we see that for young girls, that they are oftentimes being told, "Oh, this sport is not for you," as you just said. I played American football. Like, how do you then decide? No, I can do this. I can play football. I can do all these things. You can't. I'm not listening to you at all.
Yeah.
It takes quite a bit of strength, I would assume, like just a mental strength, as well as confidence. So how can young girls or young boys in general, how can young athletes build this type of confidence to say no to the naysayers, so to speak?
I would say that when people are telling you no, that you can't do something, you don't even need to have a reaction. You show it through your actions. You show it through your play. Use it as fuel for your fire to go out there and be passionate about what you do.
Use it as fuel for your fire. This is a great quote. Really appreciate you joining us today on the SPRTER podcast. Everyone, we make sure to link out, head over to Madi's experience store on the SPRTER app. Check out all the cool experiences she has on offer. Connect with her there. Follow along on Insta, all of the socials. Thank you for joining us, Madi.
Thank you.
Good luck with the upcoming season, graduating, and an awesome 2023.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You have a good day. Bye.
You too. Bye.